Hello and welcome again to Unit 1, where we talk about job ads and job interviews. This is Lesson 2, talking about your interview. Now listen carefully guys, as this video introduction will form the basis of some of your questions in this exercise. So enjoy, listen carefully, and if you take my advice, listen twice. We're going to talk about how to make a great first impression. The saying, you only have one chance to make a first impression, is very true in many situations, from job interviews to sales calls, or from that first meeting to the first date. But how can you make sure that you start off on the right foot in any of these scenarios? What should you actually say? And is it the best way to follow up? Let's consider these questions. Before we think about what I, as a teacher, think, let's consider what the experts say. First impressions matter so much because they happen so fast. Whitney Johnson, author of Disrupt Yourself, says, "We make judgments about other people in a nanosecond, and once that impression is formed, it's very, very hard to change it." In other words, your relationships and your interactions will be a lot easier if you're able to begin positively from the first second. Dorie Clark, the author of Reinventing You, Define Your Brand, Imagine Your Future. She writes, "You get the benefit of the doubt. So then if you ever say the wrong thing, make a mistake, or arrive at work late, the other person is more likely to assume the best. A strong first impression," she says, "gives you more latitude to be human." Below are some strategies to help ensure others see the best in you right from the start. Firstly, prepare your talking points. Before meeting someone new, whether it's a potential employer or a new client, do your homework. Know who you are meeting, what he or she cares about, and what they might need from you. Your goal, says Johnson, is to show that you understand the problem the other person is trying to solve, and how your skills put you in a position to help. Clark also suggests preparing 2 or 3 important talking points that you feel are important. Important enough that you want to get across during the meeting. These talking points will vary depending on the situation, but in general they should highlight or showcase your knowledge, strategic planning abilities, and your grasp of the business. Ideally, the points will crop up naturally during the course of your discussion. But if you get to the end of the conversation and they haven't emerged, say something like, "Before we leave, I have a few things I want to make sure I mention." Secondly, be aware of your body language. When meeting someone new, it's normal to be nervous. You don't want that anxiety to show, so your body language should be confident and comfortable, says Clark. I would agree entirely with Mr. Clark. Be yourself and try to relax. But that advice is easier preached than practiced, of course. So both Clark and myself suggest that using the methodology of power posing before the meeting to tamp down your cortisol levels. Take long strides when you walk, sit up straight, and walk with your chest held high. Even if this isn't your natural way of being, you can assume simple poses that will increase your confidence. For particularly high-stakes meetings, you may also be worthwhile to video yourself ahead of time so you can see how the other person will view you. Observing yourself in this way will help you identify how you can improve your delivery. Next, play to your strengths. It's useful to have a trusted group of friends and colleagues who can help you understand how you appear to others, how you come across to others in the world. Ask them what they see as your strengths, your winning traits, and the most likable things about you. And then try to emphasize those things when you're meeting someone new. Johnson even went on to suggest that thinking about compliments you've received from co-workers and bosses. You might dismiss compliments for things that come naturally to you, but in fact, those are things that people want. Things that you're actually the best at. And what you should highlight when you're trying to make a good impression. The next task is to translate those compliments to something that is measurable. If, for instance, colleagues say that you are a great people manager, seek out metrics to support that idea. Perhaps your direct reports tend to get promoted faster, or your team is more productive. Don't toot your own horn. Rather, present evidence that toots it for you. Also, find something you have in common. Another great way to build rapport is to find a bond or a point of commonality, says Clark. The bond needn't be something that's profound. It could be that you attended the same university, you have children at the same age, or you read the same book recently. The goal is to create a connection on a human level. Finding out what you have in common with the person might require a little bit of detective work on your part. Look for clues about things like a devotion to a certain sports team, a love for a region of the world, or an admiration for a particular historical figure. In this day and age, it's perfectly normal to have researched someone on LinkedIn or even Facebook. This provides conversational fodder, and Johnson says that his point is don't discount small talk. It's often conversational gold. So remember to engage and be engaging. The most common mistake people make when trying to make a good impression is that they think they have to impress the other person with their vast knowledge. But in fact, your aim is not to wow and dazzle, but rather to create a conversation that's memorable. Memorable and engaging. So try to draw the other person out and listen to what they have to say. The better you make the other person feel, the more they'll be inclined to have a positive impression of you. Keep in mind that people love to talk about themselves, so ask thoughtful, open-ended questions, such as, what are you most excited about right now? Doing so allows you to tap into what the person is passionate about. It could be a new assignment at work, upcoming travel, or a new product lineup. There's also a lot of power in having a very good conversation around your respective areas of expertise. The camaraderie develops naturally. Consider also the follow-up. Even when the conversation is over, your job isn't yet done. To ensure your first impression sticks, it is wise to write a personalized note of sincere appreciation. The note ought to recap the conversation in a way that shows you've thought about it or learned some new insight from it. If the person is on social media, convey that you want to connect. Share a blog that someone has written on LinkedIn, or tweet an article that mentions him or his company. Read his book and send a note about it. You want to show that your conversation had an impact on you while also bringing yourself to the table. So let's go over and summarize the principles to remember here. the do's and the don'ts. Do plan ahead in preparing points to get across during your meeting. Do gather feedback from trusted colleagues on your best traits and try to emphasize those traits. And lastly, do ask questions to try to draw out the other person. The better you make them feel, the more likely you are to have a positive impression. Now, let's think of the things you don't do. Your body language should be relaxed, confident, and comfortable. Don't fidget, don't sit with your arms folded, don't slouch back in the chair. Be confident, comfortable, and relaxed. Don't discount for one moment small talk. It can be a good way to uncover common bounds. And indeed, the interview starts when you get to the meeting until you walk out of the door. Small talk on the stairs about your journey, small talk on the stairs leaving about what you're doing over the weekend is very, very important. And remember, don't toot your own horn. Instead, present evidence that speaks to your domain expertise and managerial experience. It's much better to prove a point than just talk about it. So, that's what the experts say. What do you think will make you stand out from the crowd for all the right reasons? Hopefully, after this class, you'll be able to form a plan, execute it with confidence, and start your dream job sooner rather than later. Now, continue with the lesson, and at the end of that lesson, we will summarize what you should have learned from it. Good luck. See you later. Welcome to the lesson. Normally, the number one question in your interview is, tell me about yourself. Now, I think you'll agree with me that when you're asked this dreaded question, tell me about yourself, in the most intense environment you can think of, the chances are that you will blabber and make little sense if you're not prepared. Worst of all, it will most likely be the first question that they ask you at the interview. Today, I will share with you a very detailed answer that will increase your chances to win that job by a large margin. My name is Keith Gillibrand, and I have interviewed and recruited for hundreds of positions in several companies, from Fortune 500 companies to small startup companies with just a few employees. In this video, my intention is to show you a different perspective than you find in conventional wisdom. All right, let's begin. First, let's cover the what not to do's. These will be short and sweet, I promise. Then we look at why you are asking this question, and eventually we will craft the perfect answer for you. Sounds good? Okay, great. So, the 5 big what not to do's. Number 1, to start with, the hiring manager has probably seen your resume and even your cover letter. So there's really no need for you to go over your resume bullet by bullet. Having said this, it doesn't hurt your chances to highlight some of your most important qualifications and achievements. Number 2, when you're presenting your background, don't fall victim to under or over qualification. Just give them what they need. There's a very thin line between being an overachiever and overqualified and an underachiever. Number 3, there is no need to share your life story. Please don't try to do this, and please don't you start from your high school years. It's really a waste of everybody's time. I recently interviewed for a graduate hire role at a well-known, famous accounting company, P something C, I can't recall. Maybe you can remember. She literally began her pitch like this. I graduated from grade school in 1995 from XXX school, and then continued my education further with junior high school in London. High school years were very challenging with a new environment. Now, by this point, I was already done. A horrible first impression, and so I interrupted the candidate and asked her to talk about her current experience. She definitely failed the interview within 15 seconds. Point 4. Don't make it too long. It's a monologue, a one-sided conversation, so nobody really has 20 minutes to listen to your background, however exciting it may sound to you. Lastly, number 5, the final one. Don't be boring, please. You can show some serious enthusiasm in your pitch. The more energetic you are, the better it is. Oh, and remember to smile and make eye contact. It makes a huge difference. Okay, those are the biggest what not to do's that there are, in my opinion. Now, let's talk about why hiring managers ask this question. First, I'll cover what everybody else thinks, why they answer that question. Then, I'll tell you why I think the hiring managers ask that question. Some people think that you are asked to present yourself because hiring managers want to see how you respond to a question and that you are not prepared for. I'm not sure why people think you'll be unprepared. You've been planning this meeting for days, right? Some other people think they want to know what you consider important in your background. For this one, I can agree to a certain extent. I'd also want to see what you consider important in your background. But the real reason that and I know many other hiring managers in multinational organizations ask this question, is because we want to see your presentation skills. Yes. Surprised? After all, think about it. We all have seen your resume, your cover letter. You've probably already passed the HR interview. Why go over your background all over again? Even if they haven't seen it before, they're holding your resume in their hands when they ask the question. It's all about selling yourself. Companies want employees who are presentable. They can represent the firm professionally to their clients, which is especially true for consulting and other professional services companies. They want people who are charismatic and likable, especially if you're a client-facing situation. So think about it. If they ask you to present the company, it would be unfair to you as you have a very limited knowledge. But what better material is there to give the background you to present? Right. So they're giving you an opportunity to present something, to sell something to people. They already know when you graduated which company you worked for, when you left them, what tasks you carried out for them. So there is no need to repeat this. So what they are really interested in is, can you speak smoothly without stuttering? Can you be charismatic? Are you getting nervous when presenting? When you speak, do you impress people? How are your communication skills? How are your language skills? These and a lot more questions like this need to be addressed by the way you present. You see, this is actually an incredible opportunity for you. In fact, it's an unbelievable opportunity. Why? Well, imagine you're entering a college exam and you already know what the professor is going to ask. Wouldn't it give you an almost unfair advantage? It would, Yes? This is exactly what the presentation about yourself really is. You already know that they will ask you this question. So you just need to put clear information in the work. You need to know how to present your background very clearly and impressively. Okay, so how do you do it? I will present you two approaches. Let's call the first approach the Mercedes plan and the second one the Ferrari plan. In the Mercedes method, all you have to do is prepare a 1-minute pitch. It will have 3 sections in it. Section 1, talk about your current role. Section 2, talk briefly about your background. Section 3, talk about your future ambitions and why that company is the perfect match for what you want to do. So, this is what I would say if I were in an interview today. I've been working as an English teacher with Asia University for the past 3 years, nurturing minds with engaging and entertaining lectures and lessons. Through carefully constructed syllabi, delivered using project-based learning techniques, I've been able to enhance grade point averages by almost 20%. These project-based learning projects typically lasted anywhere from a week to 4 months. And looking back at it now, I must have done a great job, as other departments particularly requested for me whenever they came back for new projects and courses. Prior to Asia University, I was with 2 other tuition providers in Taichung, again in English language education industry. And finally, or should I say firstly in this case, I started my career with Shane Schools in Taipei, teaching English and finance to postgraduate students. I was with Shane until 2003, which is when I was laid off. I guess some would find this ironic, but the SARS virus scare affected business very badly. Training-wise, I have an MBA degree from Oxford Brookes University in England, and I hold various professional certifications including CIP, PMI, RMP and FCCA. Now, I'm looking forward to taking my career to the next level as professor with your university, enlightening and guiding minds so they can fulfill their potential. Now, using this technique would be good enough, but not necessarily something where you would collect so many points. It would suffice, but it would not be an outstanding answer. If you want to gain those extra points with your answer, then I suggest you employ a technique which I used many times in my old line of work. In the 1990s and early 2000s, I was engaged in management consulting, and we were always presenting using supporting tools. For example, PowerPoint presentations, videos, charts, interviews with experts, the list is long. So when I was interviewed by clients, I always had at least one PowerPoint presentation made up of just 3 or 4 pages. This allowed me to clearly highlight what my relevant experience was, which methodologies we used, and how the results were. I suggest you do the same. When you're asked to present your background or talk about your previous experiences, why don't you take out a printed presentation and walk them through the papers? It shows preparation, foresight, and imagination. Try to get your presentation material printed out professionally and bound using nice quality material. So when they say, "Tell me about yourself," then just say, "Can I instead show you this? I've prepared a short presentation on it." In my experience, they will definitely say yes, and it will work wonders if you are an experienced candidate, or at least have some experience to show. This some experience can be as small as an internship, on-the-job training, even your part-time roles during studies will be fine. I've put some slides in the lesson to give you an idea of what I would show during a presentation about myself. If you like these slides, download them and use them as a template for yourself. All you need to do is to customize it to your needs. This template is a good starting point, but of course, you can make it more visually appealing. While you're preparing your 3 or 4 slide presentations, focus on this, your key achievements. Make it relevant to the job that you are applying for. 2. Demonstrate why you are qualified for this role. The final step is always the most obvious one. Practice. You need to practice your speech and deliver it until you become second nature to you. There is no stuttering, no ums, wells. It's just a smooth delivery with pauses and consistent eye contact. In this way, you can show employers how charismatic you can be. And remember, you only get one chance to make that first impression.